There's a saying in the Old Testament, and he was gathered unto his people. And we're going to deal with this because there's 6 men in which this was said. And in the description, I will list the 6 men and the proper references. But what's interesting in all of these accounts, it first speaks of giving up the ghost, which means to die. And then they are to be gathered unto his people. And of course, you're probably thinking, well, so they just had a lot of people come and show up at the funeral. But there's an issue because of Moses. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 50, God tells Moses to go to a certain mountain alone, and there he will die and be gathered unto his people. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 4 through 6, this is exactly what happens. So what's my point? Moses died alone and God buried Moses. No one that was living knew where God buried him. So how in the world can Moses be gathered unto his people like a big funeral if he was all alone when he died? Remember, only God knew where he was to be buried. So to be gathered unto his people literally should read, he will be received as he is on his way to a people who have gone before him. So where did Moses go? You ready for this? And don't flip out. I'm going to explain it. He went straight to hell. But see, hell, as we know it, was a lot different before the resurrection of Jesus and before the atonement was made. Because no one really went to heaven yet, because the atonement needed to be made first. It was called Sheol in the Old Testament. It was divided into 2 sections, one for the righteous called Abraham's bosom, and the other in the Greek called Hades for the wicked, which is the hell that we're thinking of. Now, I'm not pulling this doctrine out of thin air, for Jesus himself spoke of it in Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 25. So, when Moses died, he was gathered to a people, but he was gathered to the righteous in Abraham's bosom, had already previously died before him. So, here's the question for a Jehovah's Witness. Since Jehovah said that Moses would die and be gathered to his people, but all the people that were living had no clue where God buried him and weren't there, then what other people could Jehovah be talking about but those that have already died and were righteous and living in Abraham's bosom?